Chapter 171 Barbarossa says, "These magic cores are mine." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several ice blades launched forcefully toward the crocohawk albatrosses in the sky. Ice blades were just low-grade spells, but in Meng Lei's hands, they held astonishing might. Splurt, splurt. Amid soft, continual sounds, the ice blades impaled the crocohawk albatrosses' heads one by one with utmost accuracy, reaping their lives. On top of that, Meng Lei was also rather sly and crafty. He went exclusively for the stronger crocohawk albatrosses like the 8th grade and 9th grade ones. He was above hunting the weaker ones. Ding! 1 crocohawk albatross killed. 9 million gold coins gained. Ding! Assimilation successful. Host's physical body constitution plus 1,987. Ding! 1 crocohawk albatross killed. 6,790,000 gold coins gained. Ding! Assimilation successful. Host's magic power plus 498. Ding! As Meng Lei listened to the system's cold and emotionless voice notifications, he felt as if he was listening to celestial music. While humming the most dazzling folk-style one, he also released ice blades to the beat. The boundless horizon is my love. At the foot of the stretching mountains the flowers bloom. What kind of rhythm is the most? His movements were leisurely and carefree as if taking a stroll in the park. It was just a shame that the battle was simply too chaotic. So even a ferocious tiger like Meng Lei had become completely inconspicuous among the dogs. He didn't catch anyone's attention at all. Boom, boom, boom. The massacre continued without even a moment's pause, and large numbers of crocohawk albatrosses perished at their hands. At last, their actions finally enraged the crocohawk albatross king. Screech, a sharp and crisp, loud and resounding cry that could almost shatter someone's eardrums suddenly rang out. Then, a massive crocohawk albatross with a golden crown on its head and a wingspan of over 100 meters wide shot out of a cave. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless wind blades shot down everywhere. The crocohawk albatross king. It's the crocohawk albatross king. Be careful, everyone. The crocohawk albatross is a Saint Domain magical beast. Let's work together to slay that beast. We can discuss how to split the spoils thereafter. What say everyone to that? All right, that's the only choice we have. We mustn't be negligent and careless when up against a Saint Domain magical beast. Attack! Apart from a minority of lone rangers like Meng Lei, all the other 50 to 60 contestants were obviously split into quite a few teams. After a bit of discussion, all of them made their decisions. Then they charged toward the crocohawk albatross king together. Boom! 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 The dragon people warriors flapped their wings and soared into the sky, while the magicians chanted magic incantations and cast high-grade spells. Boom! 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 Overwhelming attacks engulfed the crocohawk albatross king. At the same time, a dazzling golden light also flew toward it with the other attacks. Hidden among the rest of the attacks, it cut across the crocohawk albatross king's head. Ding! 1 crocohawk albatross king killed. 11 million gold coins gained. Squawk! The crocohawk albatross king froze in midair. Its wings that were capable of blotting out the whole sky also became weak and powerless at this moment. Then, its head went limp, and it crashed toward the ground with a deafening boom before its movements ceased completely in the end. Oh, what's going on? It died just like that? Were our attacks so sharp and powerful that we could even straight-up kill a Saint Domain magical beast? The contestants looked absolutely stupefied. However, their reactions were in no way slow. All of them flew toward the crocohawk albatross king at lightning-fast speed. The magic core is mine. Don't any of you dare fight me for it. No, it's mine. All the contestants' eyes had turned red from agitation. However, a sudden turn of events occurred at this point. Whoosh! The sharp whiz of something shooting through the air rang out. By the time a golden ray of light flashed past the contestants, someone had already appeared in front of the crocohawk albatross king. A head of dazzling golden blonde hair, a suit of golden armor, a pair of golden horns on the forehead, a huge golden sword underneath his feet. He was suave and handsome, domineering, and outstanding. He gave off an incredibly noble and elegant air, every action of his exhibiting a gentleman's grace, a coexistence of dominance and elegance. He was someone who had both looks and power. Barbarossa. It's Prince Barbarossa. All the contestants froze on the spot, none of them daring to take another step forward. Without any hint of emotion on his countenance, Barbarossa's golden eyes swept across the place as he uttered lightly, "This Saint Domain magic core is mine." Then, without paying any heed to the others anymore, he turned and flew toward the Crocohawk Albatross King. This? All the contestants looked at one another. Despite being incredibly frustrated, none of them dared to step forward to stop Barbarossa. Prince Barbarossa's terrifying strength aside, his identity alone was already enough to stop them from acting rashly. Not only did he possess terrifying strength that placed him at 148th place in the genius ranking, but he also had a powerful identity, someone destined for the throne. Who would go against him just for a mere Saint Domain magic core? Forget it. Forget it. I can't afford to offend him. Nope, not at all. Countless miles away, while all of this was happening, everything that had taken place had also coincidentally entered the sight of the Emperor and the others. It actually wasn't quite appropriate to say that it was coincidental, though. The chaotic battle at the cliff had simply been too intense. It had attracted Frederick the 32nd's attention a long time ago, so he had specially gotten someone to switch the display to the area. Barbarossa showing up was purely coincidental and not some kind of special attention on him. However, at the sight of Prince Barbarossa's actions, ingratiating compliments rang out one after another, and there was no pause to the praises lauding his actions. He killed the Saint Domain Crocohawk Albatross King with just a swing of his sword. He easily scared off 50 to 60 contestants with just a simple word or two. Is that the might of Prince Barbarossa? As expected of Prince Barbarossa, the Empire is so blessed to have him. Upon his subjects' praises and compliments, Frederick the 32nd only gave a non-committal smile. Then, he got ready to get someone to switch the display to other contestants. However, something unexpected occurred at that point. Where did you come from? How dare you steal my magic core? A bright and placid voice suddenly rang out. At the silent cliff, it sounded especially crisp and clear. Oh, all the contestants froze at once and looked at the owner of the voice in disbelief. Prince Barbarossa, who had just flown over to the Crocohawk Albatross King and was about to gouge out its magic core, also paused slightly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 50 to 60 pairs of eyes simultaneously landed on Meng Lei. The gazes of tens of thousands of people at the Dragon God Cathedral also fell onto him. Who's that? Who's he? Where did that little brat come from? Is he out of his mind? Even someone the likes of him dares to stand in Prince Barbarossa's way? What a fool! As the contestants stared at Meng Lei, all of them were rendered speechless. They had been wondering what kind of hotshot it could be, but little did they expect that it was just an egotistical, ignorant little brat. At the same time, silence also reigned in the Dragon God Cathedral. With surprise written all over their faces, the emperor, princes, princesses, Saint Domain experts, and high-ranking officials and nobles, all of them were watching the young teenager on the magic screen. That boy? President Fred and the Fighting Dragon Academy president could only chuckle wryly. I just knew that this would happen, except I didn't expect it to be so soon. That kid is too hot-headed. Doesn't he know that he's up against Prince Barbarossa this time? Even if we disregard his status, just his strength alone is already. The Fighting Dragon Academy president shook his head lightly, his countenance grave. President Fred nodded silently in response, feeling somewhat nervous. This magic core is mine. Do you have a problem with that? An aloof Barbarossa cast a glance at Meng Lei. Is it yours just because you say so? Who do you think you are? Meng Lei burst into laughter at once. If I say that the spatial ring you're wearing and that golden sword underneath your feet are mine, would you give them to me? D. Barbarossa's eyes narrowed slightly. 1. A popular Chinese square dance song by folk song duo Phoenix Legend. Chapter 172 Beating Up a Prince. A Colossal Dragon's True Form. Insignificant tricks. Meng Lei shook his head and chuckled lightly. He easily evaded the golden sword beam with a slight dodge. After that, he turned up bizarrely right in front of Barbarossa with a flash of his feet, and then he rammed his knee upward forcefully. Bam! Meng Lei's knee landed squarely against Barbarossa's abdomen with a dull bam. A great force broke out upon impact, and Barbarossa was sent flying right out. Thud! Meng Lei went on his toes and easily caught Barbarossa's golden sword. Yeep, this has a good weight to it. It seems like it's crafted from pure gold, so I can probably sell it for quite a pretty sum. The lip corners of all the contestants present and the Dragon God Cathedral spectators spasmed when they heard what he said, and expletives filled their minds. That was Prince Barbarossa's weapon. Not only was the sword meant for the royalty's exclusive use, but it was also an invaluable Saint Domain-level magic weapon. How others wished they could snatch it for their private collection. Yet he was actually thinking of selling it? What a heartless and insensitive fellow he was. That little rascal. President Fred's countenance darkened, and he glanced carefully at Frederick the 32nd. Contrary to his expectations, however, not only was His Majesty the Emperor not angry, but he was even watching Meng Lei with great interest as if he had just discovered a whole new world. At the sight of that, Fred secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Boom! Prince Barbarossa had erupted. Like blazing golden flames, a dazzling golden light burst forth from all around him. Has he transformed into a Super Saiyan? A huge jolt went through Meng Lei as he wondered to himself, is it the first or second form of Super Saiyan mode? Surely it can't be the third form? His hair isn't that long. At the same time, a horrifying wave of surging, torrential aura also erupted from Barbarossa. You cheap piece of trash. You deserve death for that. Barbarossa's icy-cold eyes brimmed with overflowing murderous intent. The metal elements within a few kilometers of where they were converged madly toward him, and in a mere instant, they had already formed into innumerable golden spears. With a low roar from Barbarossa, thousands upon thousands of golden spears instantly shot toward Meng Lei upon command. Amid sharp, shrill whizzes, it was as if even the sky had been slashed open. The sword's might was incredibly horrifying. Retreat! Hurry and retreat! At the sight of this, the contestants' countenances changed dramatically, and they hastily fled into the distance. The mid-level Saint Domain Prince Barbarossa's raging attacks weren't something that they could bear at close range. Should something go wrong and they end up as collateral damage, their deaths would only be for naught. He's enraged Prince Barbarossa. That bastard. He'll know very soon just how foolish his actions were. Prince Barbarossa's fury isn't something he can bear. At the Dragon God Cathedral, many officials and nobles' blood was boiling with passion, their eyes brimming with excitement. President Fred and the others were the only ones whose hearts were practically in their mouths, nervous and uneasy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Amidst sharp, shrill whizzes, it took only 1/10 of a second for the thousands upon thousands of golden spears to reach Meng Lei. That terrifying momentum and sharp, piercing golden light of theirs were as though they wanted to jab Meng Lei into Swiss cheese and nail him down onto the ground. Only then would Barbarossa's fury be fully vented. 9th grade metal elemental dragon language magic? Heavens locking golden spears? Meng Lei shook his head lightly. While it certainly possesses terrifying might, and he's also fast enough in his spellcasting, it's just a shame that it won't work on me. Meng Lei's calm and passive voice was still echoing in the surroundings when he instantly transformed into several golden rays of light and disappeared from where he was. All the heavens-locking golden spears whizzed through the air, piercing through him before becoming embedded into the ground. Is he dead? Has he been pierced to death? Everyone's eyes widened as they watched. The smoke and dust gradually dispersed to reveal the whole riddled, beehive-like ground. However, Meng Lei had already disappeared from sight. He didn't leave behind even a trace of his existence. Taken aback, someone asked, "Is he dead?" "No, he isn't. He's right there," Everyone raised their heads at the person's response and looked up to see a massive fire shield that spanned as wide as 100 meters in the sky. White-hot flames blazed as 9 fire dragons circled around it. Their gigantic wings blotted out the sky as they roared furiously into the sky. The next moment, while carrying a terrifying heat capable of burning everything to the ground, the gigantic fire shield plummeted from the sky. Barbarossa was only in time to dash a few steps out when it enveloped him. Contract, Meng Lei commanded. Buzz. Upon command, the gigantic fire shield began to shrink and contract, turning from a huge 100 meters wide fire shield into a small fire bell that didn't even reach 10 meters wide. Explode! Meng Lei commanded again. Boom! The spell followed his commands, and the small fire bell exploded with a great boom. Amid earth-shattering explosions, a mushroom cloud rose into the air. At the same time, raging energy waves also exploded and instantly swept several miles outward. Smoke and dust roiled and billowed as the ground shook and quivered. The cliff broke, and rocks rolled and fell off. Dead silence filled the Dragon God Cathedral, or rather, it was frighteningly quiet. The dazed princes, princesses, officials, and nobles stared at the magic screen that had been entirely covered by the mushroom cloud. They felt their throats go dry and their brains short-circuit. Only the Saint Domain experts were able to maintain clarity of mind, but even so, they couldn't get any more astounded all the same. Does anyone recognize that fire elemental spell? No, I don't. Never seen it before. Not at all. But its might is definitely one of the first-class spells. If no one knows of it, then could it be an original first-class spell? An original first-class spell? Gasp. Gasps filled the venue. Where's Prince Barbarossa? How is he? As the others regained their senses one by one, their eyes also bore into the magic screen, wishing desperately to know Prince Barbarossa's current condition. At the same time, the contestants that had retreated a great distance away were also staring at the center of the battleground. Their necks were craned awfully long, and they didn't blink even once. Puff as the ocean breeze blew, the surrounding smoke and dust completely dispersed to reveal the bombarded battleground. Gasp! Everyone gasped once more. What a massive pit! Where the ground had been, a massive pit over 1,000 meters wide was now in its place. The walls of the pit shone and gave off a multicolored light. It was obviously the result of sand and rocks being burned into glass upon the explosion. The glass reflected a dazzling array of colors under the sunlight. Just how high must the heat have been just now? Everyone swallowed hard as their gazes fell hurriedly onto the bottom of the pit. At the bottom of the pit was the form of someone in a half-kneel. A large half of his brilliant golden-yellow hair had been burned away, and his dazzling, eye-catching golden-yellow armor was also scorched pitch black. The key here, however, was that his handsome and suave, domineering and elegant face had also turned charcoal black. His previous noble grandeur was no longer, and his elegance and dominance also nowhere in sight. If one must describe him with a word, then it would be pathetic. Indeed, the current Prince Barbarossa was certainly in an extremely pathetic state. Not only was his hair burned, but even his eyebrows, handsome face, and armor, every inch of him was burned. Slathered all over in ash, he was the very picture of an extra filming a war film. That's Prince Barbarossa? Everyone clapped their hands over their mouths, somewhat unable to accept the sight. Roar. Even the audience was unable to tolerate it, let alone the person involved himself. A loud, sonorous, and furious dragon roar rang out like an explosion. Then, a terrifying wave of dragon might suddenly erupted from the bottom of the pit. In that instant, breathing difficulties came over all the contestants present, and they felt an intense, dull ache in their chests, as if their hearts were clenched tightly in someone else's hand. Boom! Boom! Raging winds blew sand and earth everywhere. Then, a gigantic golden shadow charged out of the pit and soared into the sky. Roar! The overlord of the sky's imposing, razor-sharp dragon claws, surging, churning dragon might, loud, clear, and sonorous dragon roars. Every one of them was indicative of that enormous creature's true identity. Yes, that's right. The terrifying creature currently suspended high up in the sky and releasing dragon might at will was none other than the existence standing at the apex of the continent's pyramid of lifeforms, and the one known as the Overlord of the Skies, the King of all dragons, the Golden Colossal Dragon. Roar! The Golden Colossal Dragon roared into the sky. Its 100 meters long body was incredibly massive. Its muscles were powerful and brimmed with great strength. While its claws were incomparably sharp, it was powerful, handsome, a combination of dominance and beauty, and a coexistence of power and aesthetics. So, that's the Golden Colossal Dragon? Meng Lei muttered to himself. It really looks very handsome. If I had a mount like that, I'd definitely look very cool riding it. A mount? Well, Amos snorted. You sure dream big. If someone else had overheard you, you'd be a goner for sure. That's true. This is the Dragon God Empire, after all. Meng Lei gave a patronizing response, and then he asked, "Well, President, that guy shouldn't be as strong as you, right? Why is his dragon form so much bigger than yours? What's so astonishing about that? When an ordinary colossal dragon comes of age, their bodies can reach as long as 20 to 30 meters. And when one crosses over into Saint Domain, their size also doubles to 50 to 60 meters. OL, Amos explained. As the king of all dragons, the Golden Colossal Dragon is twice the size of ordinary colossal dragons. That guy is also a Saint Domain, so isn't it very normal for him to be bigger in size than me? No wonder. Meng Lei nodded slightly. Then, he licked his lips and added, but for its size, it sure has pretty average abilities. If it weren't for the fact that I'm in the Dragon God Empire now, I would have slain it. Slain it? Well, Amos, who got a huge fright, barked fiercely. You treasonous little rascal. Even if you have a death wish, don't you dare implicate me. What kind of brave dragon slayer nonsense are you saying? Do you have a death wish? Hee hee. Well, that was just a casual mention, wasn't it? Meng Lei gave a sheepish laugh. Kid, that's too dangerous a thought to have. Well, Amos took a deep breath and said, listen up, you'd best not harbor thoughts like that ever again in the future. Otherwise, there'll be no place for you in the Dragon God Empire. All right. Meng Lei curled his lip disdainfully as he said, it's just a casual remark. Must you be that worked up? I'm not that foolish. Humph. Even a casual remark is forbidden. Well, Amos replied with a snort. A chuckling Meng Lei replied, don't worry, I won't. Then, he looked at the massive figure in the sky and asked, speaking of which, aren't golden colossal dragons royalty of the empire? That guy must have a really extraordinary identity, right? Does extraordinary even cut it? When it comes to the passing down of bloodlines, pure-blooded golden colossal dragons have always only produced one offspring in every generation. Amos shook his head as he went on. Every emperor only produces one pure-blooded golden colossal dragon offspring at the maximum. Considering how young that fellow is, if I'm not wrong, he's likely the current emperor's one and only pure-blooded son. The emperor's son? That guy is a prince of the empire. Meng Lei was shocked. Then, realization dawned upon him and he remarked, no wonder those contestants chose to swallow the insult and suffer in silence despite having their magic core stolen. So he's a prince. What, are you scared? Asked a mirthful old Amos. Scared? Meng Lei licked his lips as he said, hee hee. I'm so excited that I'm almost climaxing. I can barely stop myself from going forward and beating him up again. The ignorant are the bravest, indeed. A snorting OL Amos said, in the Dragon God Empire, only pure-blooded golden colossal dragons can inherit the throne. Do you know what that means? The answer had already occurred to Meng Lei. It means that that fellow in front of you right now is going to ascend the throne and become the emperor in the future. In other words, he's the future master of this empire. Well, Amos had a gloating look all over his face as he said, but what about you? To think you actually dare to beat up the future emperor. Hee hee. The future emperor? Doesn't that make him the crown prince, then? Meng Lei was rendered completely speechless. The very first golden colossal dragon I encountered in my entire life, and it actually had to be the Empire's crown prince? My luck is seriously like no other. Are you scared yet? Amos said with a laugh. I'd advise you to admit defeat like a good sonny and offer up your ass for His Royal Highness to whoop and vent his anger. Perhaps you'll have a shot at survival if you do that. Meng Lei snorted and replied, Admit defeat? You're thinking too much. Amos raised an eyebrow and asked, What are you intending to do? Since it's destined that he's going to have a grudge against me, then I might as well go all the way. That way I won't lose out too much. Meng Lei licked his lips and sneered. I actually held back just now, you know? Tisk tsk. You sure are impressive. Amos burst into laughter. Roar. At that point, Barbarossa had finally charged up his attack. He turned into a bolt of golden lightning with a flap of his wings and shot toward Meng Lei. Winds howled and swirled sand and dust everywhere, while a vast, incredible dragon might pervaded the area. Since my debut, I've battled all sorts of magical beasts, among which there was no lack of Saint Domain magical beasts like the golden-winged holy light tiger and so on. Even the king of terrestrial battles like the Behemoth has submitted to me. But colossal dragons are the only ones that I've never fought before. Meng Lei slowly rose into the air, his long hair fluttering and his magic robe flapping in the wind. His eyes gleamed brightly as his blood boiled. Today, I shall have a taste of the so-called Overlord of the Skies and see if it really deserves its title. Whoosh! Meng Lei also turned into a stream of light that went straight toward Barbarossa. What's he doing? Is he fighting head-on with Prince Barbarossa? Everyone was stupefied at the sight of Meng Lei's actions. At 100 meters long and incredibly massive and handsome, the current Barbarossa fully deserved the title of Overlord of the Skies. But what about Meng Lei? Standing at barely 1.7 meters tall, although he had pleasant and attractive features that wealthy older ladies favored, compared to Prince Barbarossa, the difference between the two of them was practically like heaven and earth. Was he actually intending to fight Barbarossa head-on with that sad-looking body of his? The Fighting Dragon Academy president's eyes widened, and he exclaimed, What's he doing, Fred? You're asking me? Who am I supposed to ask? Then, President Fred was on the edge of breaking down. He really didn't know what Meng Lei was trying to do. In his opinion, Meng Lei's advantages were his magic and his comprehension of the laws of nature. Instead of what he was currently doing, he should have been putting more distance between the two of them and making use of magic to launch long-range attacks on Prince Barbarossa. What was the difference between him charging forward like a moth flying into the fire and seeking death? What exactly is that kid doing? To Meng Lei and Prince Barbarossa, the distance of several hundred meters was nothing but a matter of a mere instant. As a thunderous, earth-shattering boom erupted, the human and dragon clashed brazenly against each other. Boom! An explosive boom erupted in the heavens and earth, sending sound waves reverberating everywhere. Gales wreaked havoc as smoke and dust roiled and billowed. However, something that left everyone flabbergasted took place the next moment. The two parties involved in the barbaric clash, respectively, retreated at the same time. Meng Lei retreated 20 to 30 meters to the back while Barbarossa retreated 5 to 6 meters away. At first glance, it seemed like Meng Lei was the one that had lost. However, on further inspection, one would realize that Meng Lei was completely unscathed. His face was neither red, nor was he out of breath. On the other hand, golden dragon blood was dripping from Barbarossa's claws, and he had a look of affliction on his face. Prince Barbarossa is wounded? A furor went through the crowd. Even Frederick the 32nd was taken aback by the turn of events, and a look of surprise surfaced on his visage. My beloved subjects, do any of you know that teenager? Which academy is he from? The princes, princesses, officials, and nobles looked at the academy presidents and teachers in charge all at once. They were also extremely curious as to who exactly that genius who could fight Prince Barbarossa head-on was. I don't know who he is. He's not from our academy. Does anyone among all of you know who he is? All the academy presidents and teachers in charge shook their heads. Only Angus, the the president of Black Dragon Academy, couldn't help but look at Fred, a hint of strong jealousy flashing across his eyes. Fred stepped forward and replied with a wry laugh, "Your Majesty, he's Meng Lei from our Fire Dragon Magic Academy." "The Fire Dragon Magic Academy? That boy is from the Fire Dragon Kingdom? There's a genius like that in the Fire Dragon Kingdom?" Meng Lei, Frederick the 32nd laughed and asked, "President Fred, tell me, how old is Meng Lei this year? Has he challenged the Dragon God Tower yet? What's impressive about him?" "Yes, Your Majesty." President Fred cleared his throat. Then, his gaze swept across the whole venue, and he replied, "Your Majesty, Meng Lei has just reached 16 years of age this year. He's a first-year student of the Fire Dragon Magic Academy. With his outstanding magic talent, he can be said to be the #1 genius of the Fire Dragon Magic Academy within the last 10,000 years. Before the exchange competition, Meng Lei had never been to the Imperial City, so he hadn't challenged the Dragon God Tower before. He did, however, visit the tower yesterday. His ranking as of this morning was 227th place at level 40. Whoa! A furor went through the crowd. Everyone was astounded by Meng Lei's achievements. 16 years old, 227th place, level 40. On top of it all, he'd taken just a day to do all that. Just how amazingly talented must he be? Just how terrifyingly strong must he be? For one to pass through the Dragon God Tower's 30th level, they must at least possess the strength of a Saint Domain. To pass through the 40th level, one must be at least mid-level Saint Domain. Frederick the 32nd found this rather unbelievable. For a teenager that has just turned 16 years old to possess such strength, he is truly astonishingly talented and possesses an amazing gift. Everyone nodded quietly in response. Even though there were those who were indignant among them, they couldn't rebut the statement. For a 16-year-old to be a mid-level Saint Domain, it was truly hard to imagine just how he had cultivated to such an extent. President Luke, in your opinion, how does Meng Lei compare to Sachin, Adil, Mond Aston, and the others from the Dragon God Academy? This? President Luke glanced at President Fred, his brows drawing together into a slight frown. Then he replied, "In terms of talent alone, Sachin, Adil, and the others certainly cannot compare to Meng Lei. But..." President Luke changed the course of the conversation at this point and said resolutely and decisively, "When it comes to their strength, Sachin, Adil, and the others are definitely stronger than him. 16 years of age is ultimately still too young." Frederick the 32nd gave a small smile at his words, refraining from making any judgment. Instead, he looked at President Fred and asked, "President Fred, what do you think? It's hard to say when they haven't competed against one another." President Fred shook his head slightly, and then he added, "However, Meng Lei's talent in magic talent is 1 in a million. He also has a fairly deep comprehension of laws of nature, so he is likely able to put up a fight against them. For him to possess such strength at 16 years old, that child's talent is truly hard to come by even in 10,000 years, as expected of the Fire Dragon Kingdom. Rich lands indeed foster many outstanding talents." "Thank you, Your Majesty." President Fred was rather proud of that. However, as Frederick the 32nd watched the magic screen intently, the course of the conversation took a sudden turn, and he asked, "Since Meng Lei has such outstanding magic talent, why is his body also so strong? Isn't he a pure-blooded human?" Everyone nodded at his words. Humans were frail and weak, and so were human magicians' bodies. Even an 8th-grade warrior's body was stronger than a human Saint Domain great magician's, let alone a golden colossal dragon like Barbarossa, and fighting him head-on at that. Yet Meng Lei had the guts to fight Prince Barbarossa head-on. Why was his body so strong and sturdy? "Your Majesty, there's more to it than meets the eye." President Fred had seen this coming, so he explained with a smile, "Meng Lei isn't purely human. Rather, he's a fire dragon person." "A fire dragon person?" Upon hearing his response, realization dawned upon everyone. No wonder his body is so strong. So he's a fire dragon person. A golden colossal dragon's body is definitely stronger than a fire dragon's. A pure-blooded colossal dragon's body is definitely stronger than a dragon person's. These propositions were wrong, of course. However, there was a condition to that: they must be of the same grade. At the same grade, a golden colossal dragon's body was stronger than a fire dragon's for sure, and a pure-blooded colossal dragon's body was also definitely stronger than a dragon person's. There was no doubt about these 2 points. However, if the fire dragons or dragon people's bloodline developments were deeper, then there was a chance that their bodies might be stronger than the golden colossal dragons and pure-blooded colossal dragons. Frederick the 32nd understood this line of reasoning, of course. Nevertheless, it still puzzled him. Meng Lei is only 16 years old. The amount of time he has spent on cultivation is extremely limited. Apart from having to cultivate magic, does he really have the time to develop his fire dragon bloodline and build his body to such an extent? What His Majesty says makes sense. At the young age of 16, not only does he have to cultivate magic, but he also has to comprehend laws of nature and, on top of that, develop his bloodline to train his body. Where does he find the time for all that? An extremely deep level of comprehension of laws of nature, as well as body durability that matches up to Prince Barbarossa's. If he were a slightly older pure-blooded fire dragon, perhaps that might be possible, but at 16 years old, terribly perplexed, everyone began to whisper among themselves. Meng Lei's talent was no longer something that could be merely described as monstrous. It was so crazy that people couldn't accept it at all. It was as if a 10-year-old had received the Nobel Prize in physics as well as the Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine. Was that even possible? This? At once, President Fred started to hem and haw. Might you be hiding something, President Fred? A look of puzzlement came over Frederick the 32nd's countenance. I have something to say, Your Majesty. Angus, the Black Dragon Academy president, stepped forward at this point. Frederick the 32nd said with a look of puzzlement, Feel free to speak your mind, President Angus. Angus declared loudly, Your Majesty, when Meng Lei was challenging the Dragon God Tower yesterday, I saw with my own 2 eyes that the Dragon God Genius ranking had clearly indicated that Meng Lei was human and not a fire dragon person. A human? Isn't Meng Lei a fire dragon person? Can a pure-blooded human actually have such a strong body? Humans are born with frail and weak bodies. How can his body possibly be that strong? Everyone began to speculate at once. Frederick the 32nd looked at President Fred and asked, What are your views with regard to President Angus' words, President Fred? Your Majesty, while I dare not have any views about that, I do have a question that I'd like to ask President Angus. President Fred looked at Angus with a slight smile and asked, Must the challenger definitely be human, just because the Dragon God Genius ranking indicates him as such? Of course not. A double bloodline holder is also indicated as human. Angus snorted lightly and said mockingly, President Fred, surely you can't be saying that Meng Lei also carries 2 types of bloodlines like you? The Fire Dragon Titan famous throughout the whole continent? Why not? President Fred countered. Ha! President Fred sure knows how to crack a joke. Angus burst into uproarious laughter and scoffed. Just how rare are double bloodline holders? Otherwise, how would President Fred's name resound throughout the whole continent? Just because it's rare doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. President Fred, since Meng Lei holds 2 types of bloodlines, I'd like to know what his other bloodline is? Angus, who continued to pursue the matter, asked, just what kind of bloodline can actually allow him, at the age of 16, to have a powerful body that's comparable to Prince Barbarossa's? With curiosity in their eyes, everyone else's gazes also landed on President Fred. Even Frederick the 32nd was no exception. At that, President Fred could only give a wry smile as he replied, I don't know what Meng Lei's other bloodline is, either. I've only determined that he must be a holder of 2 types of bloodlines when I saw the Dragon God Genius rankings indication yesterday. Meng Lei is a Fire Dragon Magic Academy student. Fred, don't you even know what bloodlines he holds? Angus went on and said sarcastically, surely that genius student of yours isn't really a pure-blooded human, is he? because if that's true, then that'll really make him too great of a monster. At his comments, a slight frown appeared on Frederick the 32nd's countenance, and he said, Meng Lei is a Fire Dragon Magic Academy student. As the Academy president, don't you even know what the other half of his bloodline is? That's rather inexcusable. Your Majesty, I'm indeed not sure, President Fred then hastily continued. But Meng Lei certainly holds the Fire Dragon bloodline in him. I can swear to the Dragon God with regard to that. May your Majesty look into the matter. A 16-year-old Saint Domain great magician and the owner of a Saint Domain body at the same time. Not even a Fire Dragon person can achieve that, no matter how great of a genius they are. Frederick the 32nd drummed his fingers against the throne lightly as he said, When the exchange competition is over, I'll have to ask that little fellow what his other bloodline is. At which, Fred repeated respectfully, May your Majesty look into the matter. Ask? Bluntly put, it was an investigation. Fred knew that His Majesty had ultimately still become somewhat suspicious of Meng Lei. His reaction was understandable, though. After all, Meng Lei's achievements were simply too outrageous, so much so that people could hardly accept it. Should they not conduct a thorough investigation at this point? Who could be sure just what kind of creature Meng Lei might actually be? A devil genius like Adolf? A spy sent by other existential planes? Or the reincarnation of some evil god? All the possibilities were extremely disadvantageous to Meng Lei, no matter which it was. In Dragon God Empire, there was no place for even a pure human genius like Timon Barton, let alone other creatures. Boom! Just as Fred's thoughts were running at full speed, Meng Lei and Prince Barbarossa's battle also reached the climax. Meng Lei hadn't used any magic in the showdown. Instead, he'd chosen to purely butt heads with the other party. In this instant, his body's great strength was exhibited to its fullest. His senses were sharper than Barbarossa's. He had more endurance than Barbarossa. Even his weakest aspect, physical strength, was almost equally matched with Barbarossa. After a few clashes, Meng Lei was currently at a complete advantage. Neither red-faced nor out of breath, he looked as if nothing had even happened. On the other hand, Prince Barbarossa, who had transformed into his true form, was actually panting heavily and wounded in several places. It was obvious at a glance who the stronger one was. Brat, don't go too far. He's a prince, after all. Don't embarrass him too much. Well, Amos reminded him and said, You've already shown yourself to be enough of a monster. If you display your monstrous abilities any further, aren't you afraid that you'll be captured and sliced into pieces for research purposes? Sliced into pieces for research purposes? I'd like to see if anyone has the guts to do that. Meng Lei sneered. I'm a member of the Empire's royalty, you know? Who would have the guts to do something like that? A member of the Empire's royalty? Don't you have any idea what kind of bloodline you've awakened? Well, Amos rolled his eyes and said, I'll tell you, kid, once your golden god-slaying ant bloodline is exposed, it's all over. You definitely won't end up any better than Adolf. Don't worry. OL President, I'm not Adolf. It's also impossible for me to ever be. A calm and composed Meng Lei smiled and said, I'd initially planned on associating with you as an ordinary person, but all that got me was instead just suspicion and jealousy. Forget it. I'm quitting the show and laying my cards on the table now. OL Amos looked absolutely stupefied at his words. Then Meng Lei said no more. Initially, he hadn't planned on assimilating that particular bloodline, but OL Amos' warning had changed his mind. If one was 10 times more outstanding than others, people would envy them. If one was 100 times more outstanding than others, people would look up to them. But when one was so outstanding that it surpassed the range of what people could comprehend, then what it attracted would no longer just be envy and idolization but very likely also endless suspicion and trouble. Meng Lei more or less understood that somewhat. Therefore, system. Assimilate the golden colossal dragon bloodline. Yes, host. Boom. An incredibly sharp and incomparably domineering aura abruptly burst forth from his body before breaking out into dazzling golden light. For a moment there, Golden light, much like blazing golden flames, circled around Meng Lei, transforming him into the brilliant sun. As if a breached dam, a fairly violent wave of pain rushed madly into his limbs, body, and his central nervous system, reaching every nook and cranny of his body and every inch of his skin. Had this been in the past, Meng Lei would no doubt have been in great pain and agony. However, at his current cultivation level, this pain was nothing more than just a drizzle. Compared to what it had been like in the past, it was just child's play. Splurt, splurt. Amid horrifying sounds of bones piercing through flesh, several golden scales coated in blood gradually emerged from within his body like mushrooms sprouting after rain. 1 scale, 2 scales, 3 scales. It was followed closely by 2 dragon horns and a dragon tail before it ended with a pair of golden bat-like wings that shone with dazzling golden light. Boom! The dazzling golden flames blazed on, instantly evaporating all the bloodstains on Meng Lei. He also turned straight into a golden colossal dragon person covered from head to toe in golden yellow dragon scales. Standing at 2 meters tall, he had a pair of golden horns on his head, golden wings on his back, and a golden dragon tail on his bottom. Boom! A wave of pure dragon might erupted from Meng Lei and swept toward every direction, causing the countenances of everyone within several kilometers of where he was to change dramatically upon sensing the pure dragon might. A severe jolt went through all the contestants present. Everyone at the cathedral was also totally dumbfounded. Gee, golden colossal dragon person. He's a golden colossal dragon person? Angus' facial expression was incredibly exciting as it went through a myriad of different emotions. Astoundment, disappointment, indignation, disbelief. Meng Lei's other bloodline is actually the golden colossal dragon bloodline? Oh, dragon god above. This is simply too astonishing. President Fred and the Fighting Dragon Academy president exchanged a look, both seeing the astonishment in each other's eyes. When they had been watching Meng Lei's Dragon God Tower challenge the day before, they'd already determined that Meng Lei must be a double bloodline holder. However, never would they have ever expected his other bloodline to actually be the golden colossal dragon bloodline. This was simply too unbelievable. But this is great, exceedingly great. After the momentary surprise, President Fred was overjoyed. Since Meng Lei possesses the golden colossal dragon bloodline, then that makes him a member of the Dragon God Empire's royalty. Who would dare cast doubt upon him now? The moment the thought occurred to him, Fred hurriedly turned to Emperor Frederick the 32nd, who was obviously also astounded. No wonder that little fellow's body is so strong and tough. So he's a member of the royal family. I am extremely glad to know that. Didn't I say so? How can such an amazingly talented person be a human? The people's opinions did a dramatic 180-degree turn and changed instantly. While there were only suspicions and perplexity earlier, they had all turned into praises and compliments now. This was inevitable after all. While they could cast doubt upon Meng Lei and make things up about him previously, they couldn't do so anymore. Meng Lei was a golden colossal dragon person and a legitimate member of the royalty. Thus, he wasn't someone whom they could speculate about. President Angus, what do you have to say now? President Fred looked at Angus and said, You had claimed that I was deceiving His Majesty just now, but I'd like to ask who's the one deceiving the Emperor and fooling the people now? At his words, Angus' countenance turned extremely awful and constipated. Yet he couldn't rebut him at all. Rabut. There was nothing he could rebut him with. The moment Meng Lei had displayed his golden colossal dragon bloodline, there was no longer any point in saying any more. 16 years old. A Saint Domain great magician. A Saint Domain level body. A double bloodline holder. Even if a person like that hadn't been a member of the royalty, the Emperor would still have wished to make a connection or two with them. Much less when Meng Lei possessed the golden colossal dragon bloodline and was legitimate royalty. President Angus, your doubt is not without cause. Frederick the 32nd spoke up at this point. Then he went on and said, However, before you raise your doubts, you should have thoroughly investigated the situation prior to bringing it up to me. Otherwise, it would seem as though you're sowing discord and slandering a fellow official. I will keep your majesty's admonishments in mind. Angus responded respectfully, and then he slunk back to his seat gloomily. At the same time, in the Lost Continent, my body has improved quite a fair bit. That's a surprise. Meng Lei felt rather comforted as he viewed his stats interface. He'd initially thought that at his body's current level, it'd be tough for normal bloodlines like the Golden Colossal Dragons to strengthen his body by much. After all, the Golden Colossal Dragon was just a Saint Domain magical beast while he himself already possessed a Saint Domain level body. How much could the Golden Colossal Dragon possibly strengthen his body? To his surprise, however, it had actually strengthened his body by quite a fair bit. Host: Meng Lei race. Human, Fire Dragon Bloodline 52%, Fire Demon Bloodline 47%, Golden Godslaying Ant Bloodline 10%, Godslaying Rat Bloodline 1%, Golden Colossal Dragon Bloodline 50%, Wealth 22.3 Laws of Nature Origin Crystals Physical Body Constitution. Saint Domain 12 063 858 705/100 billion. Spirit Saint Domain 1 028 303 785/100 billion. Magic Power Saint Domain 1 025 877 840/100 billion. Laws of Nature Fire Elemental 0.2%, Wind Elemental 0.1%, Thunder Elemental 0.1%, Metal Elemental 0.1%, Light Elemental 0.1%. From the stats interface, one could see that the Golden Colossal Dragon Bloodline Assimilation had raised his physical body constitution attribute from the previous 11 billion to 12 billion points. It had increased by a whole 900 million points. That was in no way a small increment. If he'd used his wealth for point redemption instead, he'd have needed a whole 9 billion gold coins. That would have been a pretty hefty sum of money. Roar. Elsewhere, Barbarossa was also shocked by Meng Lei's appearance. He didn't expect Meng Lei to actually be a Golden Colossal Dragon person, and this infuriated him even further. We're both members of the royalty, but I'm a Golden Colossal Dragon with the purest bloodline, whereas he's just a bastard with an impure bloodline. So why should he be stronger than me? It was the same logic as to how ordinary humans wouldn't be jealous of how rich Jack Ma One was, but they would be jealous of friends and relatives by their side who were richer than them. That was exactly Barbarossa's current frame of mind. He was the one and only pure-blooded Golden Colossal Dragon in Dragon God Empire's younger generation, thereby destining him as the one to ascend the throne and become the ruler of the Empire. There was already nothing he could do about the 13th princess being firmly a notch above him. But that guy who had popped up out of nowhere was actually stronger than him, too. How could that possibly do? Roar. With a ferocious roar, Barbarossa crushed the pure gold pendant hanging around his neck. Right away, dazzling golden light spilled forth and instantly enveloped Barbarossa within. Boom! As if a brilliant golden sun, light shone from Barbarossa, dazzling and golden. It shrouded the whole area around him. Roar! At the same time, Barbarossa's aura also skyrocketed. In a mere instant, it had strengthened by several times. As the golden light gradually died down, Barbarossa's body also expanded by quite a few rounds. His muscles became even stronger and filled with power. His horns and claws became even sharper, and his 100 meters long body expanded to 300 to 400 meters. The most fascinating thing was that a thin layer of golden glow was rippling around him. The mist rose and fell as it flowed around him constantly. What's going on? OL President? Meng Lei was stupefied. Why has that guy powered up again? Obviously, 2 first-class spells were sealed in the pendant that guy crushed just now. OL Amos explained. If my eyes didn't deceive me, the 2 spells are likely Metal Guardian and Metal God's Blessings. Metal Guardian is a defensive single-target first-class spell, while Metal God's Blessings is an offensive single-target first-class spell. Judging from their might, those 2 Edel Elemental first-class spells are the handiwork of a Metal Elemental Saint Domain Great Magician, who's at least in the high-level or limits-level stage. They're several times mightier than most typical first-class spells, so you'd best be careful. Metal Guardian? Metal God's Blessings? The handiwork of a Metal Elemental Saint Domain Great Magician, who's at least in the high-level or limits-level stage. Meng Lei licked his lips as he remarked, "That guy sure is rich. To think he even has something like that." At the same time, at the Dragon God Cathedral, everyone stared in stupefaction at the magic screen as the place fell strangely silent. Sharp-eyed spectators could all tell that Prince Barbarossa had used a special magic device to enhance his abilities. Although the usage of magic devices wasn't prohibited in the exchange competition, openly using one to enhance one's abilities in a fair one-on-one showdown was honestly a move beneath one's dignity. Moreover, his opponent was also a member of the royalty like him. To use a magic device on a fellow member of the royalty, his breadth of mind was honestly, what an embarrassment. He has thoroughly embarrassed the royal family. Frederick the 32nd narrowed his eyes as he said, "Throw him into the 10,000 dragon nest when the exchange competition ends, so that he can reflect upon himself." No one dared to make any response. While His Majesty could admonish Prince Barbarossa at will, they, on the other hand, couldn't comment carelessly. "I'll never lose to a bastard like you." Barbarossa roared furiously in the sky. Then, he transformed into a stream of golden light that rushed straight toward Meng Lei. The current Barbarossa was just like a wild horse geared in heavy armor. Indestructible yet capable of destroying everything. "Do you think there's nothing I can do about you just because you've decked yourself in 2 layers of metal? Fine. I'll give you a taste of what a real first-class spell is." Meng Lei let out a cold laugh. Then, he slowly uttered 6 words. "Wood elemental first-class spell? Myriad of nature." Buzz, buzz. Meng Lei had only just spoken when pure, unadulterated wood elemental magic power abruptly burst forth from all around him, dyeing his entire self into a green-colored sun. Simultaneously, wood elements several kilometers from where he was also started to converge madly toward him upon being summoned. Splurt, splurt. Amid soft, strange sounds, the plants on the ground started to grow at an insane rate, as if they'd been injected with growth hormones. 10 meters, 100 meters, 1,000 meters, earth and rocks rolled about as gigantic trees sprung into the air. In just a short few breaths, the battleground in front of the cliff had transformed into a forest. Several towering trees morphed into wooden dragons with high fighting spirit and shot toward Barbarossa in the air. Roar! Barbarossa let out several furious roars as he easily broke wooden dragon after wooden dragon. Then, with an overwhelming force, he charged toward Meng Lei. You're pretty good." Meng Lei sneered. Then, he commanded, "Myriad of nature, myriad 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 of nature." One must admit that Barbarossa, who had 2 first-class spells cast on himself, had indeed gone through a dramatic spike in combat power. Be it his speed or the force of his attacks, both had been enhanced by quite a few times. It was just a shame that the one he'd run into was Meng Lei, a mutant who could cast instant release of first-class spells and had no fear of magic power depletion. As he bombarded Barbarossa with 10 successive myriad of natures, thousands upon thousands of wooden dragons wound around Barbarossa and submerged him entirely. Were there 500 of them? 1,000? Or tens of thousands of them? There was no end to their numbers. Therefore, Barbarossa's outcome was destined. As thousands upon thousands of wooden dragons wound around him one after another, Barbarossa's speed started to fall further and further. By the time he charged right up to Meng Lei, the infinite number of wooden dragons had already firmly bound him. All he could do was glare at Meng Lei and nothing more. Do you know why Madara 1 can't defeat Hashirama 2? This is the reason why. Golden Corpse Canyon, the Golden Corpse Bug Emperor. Prince Barbarossa, who had crushed his gold pendant and strengthened his abilities by quite a few times, was actually still no match for Meng Lei. Was the gap between the two of them that massive? The interval between each myriad of nature is no more than 3 seconds. Emperor Frederick the 32nd marveled. With an interval of just 3 seconds, it's practically an instant release of first-class spells. Is that little fellow's prowess in wood elemental laws of nature that deep? Everyone nodded in agreement. Since one could do instant release for normal spells, they could also do the same for first-class spells, of course. However, to achieve instant release for first-class spells, the caster needed an extremely high degree of comprehension of the laws of nature. Only then could they operate from a strategically advantageous position and see everything at one glance. There was no way an average Saint Domain great magician could achieve something like that. Yet, in spite of that, Meng Lei was able to do so. This showed that his degree of comprehension of wood elemental laws of nature had already reached a terrifying stage. This? President Fred could only laugh wryly at that. Am I wrong in saying that, President Fred? A look of puzzlement came over Frederick the 32nd's countenance. Your Majesty, to tell the truth? President Fred had no choice but to explain. Right before just now, I didn't even know that Meng Lei had wood elemental magic talent. Frederick the 32nd frowned slightly and asked, You don't even know that? President Fred answered honestly, Your Majesty, all I know is that Meng Lei has thunder elemental, fire elemental, and earth elemental magic talent. I indeed am not aware that he has wood elemental magic talent. Thunder, fire, earth, and wood? 4 elements? Meng Lei actually has 4 types of magic talent? Gasp! How terrifying! How terrifying, indeed! On top of possessing both Golden Colossal Dragon and Fire Dragon bloodlines, he also has 4 different types of magic talents. Oh great dragon god above, aren't you favoring that guy too much? The people couldn't help but gasp, every one of them astounded by Meng Lei's terrifying talent. Double bloodlines, 4 different types of magic talents. Either aspect was enough to drive one crazy with jealousy, let alone both. Even the dragon god's illegitimate son wouldn't have been that much of a mutant. Frederick the 32nd praised from the bottom of his heart. With such talent, he's surely the most talented member of the royalty in the last 10,000 years. This greatly comforts me. At the same time, in the Lost Continent, the battle had already come to an end at this point. No matter how unwilling Barbarossa was to admit it, it had indeed already ended. You've lost, Your Highness, Meng Lei said meaningfully. Then he paid no more heed to Barbarossa, who was so infuriated that he was close to killing someone. He picked up the Crocohawk Albatross King's carcass, and then he left the area. He's gone. That guy has finally left. He's too powerful, and too frightening. Is there anyone among you that knows who that guy is? Just where did he pop out from? Why is he so strong? With such strength, he can probably fight on par with those 4 mutants from the academy. You're totally famous now, kid. Tisk TSK. Beating up a prince. That's something I'd wanted to do back then but hadn't managed to. You know. Speaking of which, though, when did you awaken the Golden Colossal Dragon bloodline? How is it that I never knew? Just how much are you keeping from me? Kid. Meng Lei laid back down on the multi-armed behemoth, which resumed its journey. Then he started to chat idly with Ol Amos. Roughly half an hour later, a huge canyon entered their sight, and Sokka's the multi-armed behemoth stopped in its tracks. Boss, that's the Golden Corpse Canyon. The Golden Corpse Bug's territory ahead. The Golden Corpse Canyon? The canyon was wide and deep, and the path through it rough and rugged, long and winding. One couldn't see to the end of it at one glance. Filled with drifting smoke, it also gave off a shocking stench. Strewn all over the bottom of the canyon were innumerable carcasses and remains. Some were already starting to rot, and flies, mosquitoes, and maggots were crawling all over them. While some were old, aged carcasses where ghastly white skeletons were the only things remaining. Meng Lei stared from afar at the carcasses and skeletal remains littered all about. Coupled with the overwhelming stench, he hadn't even gotten anywhere near the area when he felt his stomach churn, and he almost threw up the contents in his gut. Sokka's. Why did you bring me to a place like this? Meng Lei clapped his hand over his nose, somewhat displeased. "Aren't you looking for Saint Domain magical beasts, boss?" Sokka's explained. "The Emperor of the Golden Corpse Bugs is the Saint Domain magical beast that was the nearest to us. It dwells right in this Golden Corpse Canyon." "Fine." While pinching his nose, Meng Lei asked, "Is there any way to get the Golden Corpse Bug Emperor out? I have no interest in going into the canyon and dying from the stench." "Easy peasy." Sokka's grabbed a huge rock and then he hurled it forcefully into the canyon. The impact caused the canyon walls to shake and tremble and rocks and stones to roll and fall off. "Boris, you mother-f***er, get the hell out here. I'm going to beat you up so bad that even your mother wouldn't recognize you." Sokka's let out a thunderous roar as he thumped his chest, his voice resounding in the canyon like roiling thunder. Compared to Clara, Sokka's way of doing things is so simple and crude. At the sight, Meng Lei couldn't help but laugh. When he'd sent the uni-horned rose python to call on others in the past, that fellow was always cowering in fear, afraid of every single thing. Even the sight of it was an embarrassment. In comparison, Sokka's was much wilder. Buzz, buzz. A brief moment later, a buzzing sound cut through the air and rushed toward them. Then, they saw a golden cloud floating out of the canyon. With Meng Lei's eyesight, he could naturally see that that was no golden cloud at all. It was obviously innumerable golden insects that had clustered into something like a locust swarm, dense and packed. They were a large golden mass. "Boss, those are the Golden Corpse Bugs." Sokka's shrank back a little as it said. "They are a type of repulsive insects with tiny little bodies, but an extremely shocking level of destructiveness." "Which grade of magical beasts are the Golden Corpse Bugs?" Meng Lei asked as he watched the glittering golden cloud intently. "Boss, a Golden Corpse Bug barely makes the cut as a 9th-grade magical beast, but their mouthparts can easily pierce through a vast majority of 9th-grade magical beasts, and even Saint Domain magical beasts' armor and skin." In a low voice, Sokka's explained, "A large swarm of Golden Corpse Bugs can polish off a Saint Domain magical beast in a matter of minutes. Therefore, they are highly dangerous entities. Unless I absolutely have to, I'd never come to this damned canyon to provoke those damned stinky bugs. They are simply too fearsome. The moment I imagine them crawling all over me and worming into my fur, I can't help but shudder all over." "Haha, look at how scared you are." Meng Lei couldn't help but laugh, though he also wondered, since every Golden Corpse Bug is a 9th-grade magical beast, with so many around, imagine the amount of money I can earn. Buzz, buzz. Just as Meng Lei's imagination was running wild, the golden cloud of Golden Corpse Bugs also finally flew over to them. Then they came together to form a huge insect. Standing at 100 meters tall and with a greenish face and ferocious fangs, the huge insect looked as though it was a gigantic louse, except golden yellow in color throughout and with a pair of wings on its back. Armor-plated all over, it was incredibly savage-looking. "To think you actually dare to come to my Golden Corpse Canyon, Sokka's. Bold of you to do so." In a thunderous voice, the huge insect spoke the human tongue and said, "Since you are so bold as to come here, then I shall eat you today so that you'll know that the Golden Corpse Canyon isn't a place where a big guy like you can enter. My little ones, gobble it up." Buzz, buzz. The huge insect instantly dispersed and turned into a golden cloud that covered the entire sky and rushed toward Sokka's. "Roar." Sokka's roared furiously into the sky, fully displaying its tyrannic stance. Yet it had no effect whatsoever on the Golden Corpse Bug cluster blotting out the sky. The insects dispersed at times, converged at times, morphed into a humanoid form at times. In a mere instant, it had already charged all the way to Sokka's. "Roar." Sokka's roared furiously and incessantly as its sharp claws swiped about here and there, smashing huge rocks around it in a haphazard manner. Yet despite its violent, raging power, it gave off a rather helpless feeling, as though a tiger that didn't know how it should be eating a porcupine. Indeed, against a cluster of tiny insects like that, what use was its wild and extreme physical strength? Sokka's was on the verge of being surrounded by the overwhelming masses of Golden Corpse Bugs. When that happened, it would end up like the rest of the broken carcasses lying forgotten at the bottom of the Golden Corpse Canyon. devoured by the golden corpse bugs and then rotting, decaying, and becoming the food of maggots and flies. Just as that was about to happen. Absolute zero. Meng Lei attacked at this point. Crack. A white, chilly air current burst forth and engulfed the large golden cloud, sealing it in ice amidst crisp-sounding cracks. At the same time, the white, chilly air current also continued to spread toward the Golden Corpse Canyon. It sealed everything in its path in ice, including even the all-pervasive stench and carcasses. A brief moment later, the Golden Corpse Canyon from earlier was no longer anywhere in sight. In its place was instead a vast white glacier. And of course, an infinite number of motionless golden corpse bugs frozen in midair. They aren't dead yet? Meng Lei was rather startled. There hadn't been any notifications from the system. This showed that the ice-sealed golden corpse bugs hadn't died yet. The spell hadn't frozen them to death. Not a single one. Well, that's amazing. Meng Lei was filled with marvel at once. Golden corpse bugs are metal elemental and ice elemental magical beasts. They're practically immune to spells of these two elements. Amos' voice rang out at this point. Absolute zero can't kill them. No wonder. Meng Lei nodded slightly. They might not be afraid of absolute zero, but what about prairie-blazing heavenly fire? Boom, boom, boom. With a mere thought from him, large expanses of black flames immediately descended from the sky and engulfed the whole area within 1,000 meters of where they were, including the Golden Corpse Canyon behind him. Everything in the black flames' path was set ablaze. Even the solid ice giving off an astonishing chill was no exception. Crackle, crackle. Upon being scorched, the solid ice surprisingly didn't melt. Instead, they became the black flames' fuel, making them burn even more violently. Boom, boom, boom. The flames blazed furiously. Ding! 1 golden corpse bug killed. 10 million gold coins gained. Ding! 1 golden corpse bug killed. 10.01 million gold coins gained. Ding! At once, system notifications began to ring out. On top of that, they rang out without any pause. That's more like it. Meng Lei nodded in satisfaction. Damn! You bastard! How dare you slaughter my children? You should die for that. A voice that sounded like an owl's hoot rang out. Then, a golden corpse bug the size of a baby's fist abruptly flew out of the cluster. It glared furiously at Meng Lei, its teeth gnashing as it did so. Boss, that's Boris, the golden corpse bug emperor. The multi-armed behemoth supplemented in a timely fashion at this point. The golden corpse bug emperor? Meng Lei couldn't help but look over. A normal golden corpse bug was pitifully tiny and only about the size of a date seed. However, that particular golden corpse bug was dozens of times, even up to 100 times, the size of other golden corpse bugs. It was as big as a human's fist. That's a Saint Domain magical beast? Meng Lei was astonished. A fist-sized Saint Domain magical beast. That's probably the smallest Saint Domain magical beast I've ever seen. Right at this point, 2 golden light balls dropped from the golden corpse bug emperor. Ding! Dropped item detected. Will you pick it up? Yes, pick it up. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a metal elemental laws of nature fragment. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You've obtained the golden corpse bug emperor bloodline. Will you assimilate it? Assimilate the metal elemental laws of nature fragment. But I'll skip the golden corpse bug emperor bloodline. The tree of vitality, the hammer of destruction. If it were possible, he didn't even want them. Therefore, Meng Lei held even less interest in the golden corpse bug emperor bloodline that he'd just picked up. Assimilate the metal elemental laws of nature fragment. After a split second, a wave of information about metal elemental magic elements and metal elemental laws of nature surged into his mind, rapidly boosting Meng Lei's comprehension of metal. Metal, sharp and solid, it specializes in slaughter. Metal, reserved and austere, it specializes in revolution. After a long while, Meng Lei finally exhaled a long breath of pent-up air. His comprehension of metal elemental laws of nature had obviously moved a whole step up. Thank you for your metal elemental laws of nature fragment. Meng Lei's gaze fell onto the golden corpse bug emperor, and he said, to thank you, I'll leave your body in one piece. Ice elemental first class spell. Absolute 0. Wood elemental first class spell. Judgment of life. With 2 first class spells tossed out successively, the golden corpse bug emperor didn't have the chance to flee at all before it lost its life. Ding! 1 golden corpse bug emperor killed. 11.8 billion gold coins gained. When the carcass came falling down, Meng Lei caught it in his hand casually. He couldn't help but sigh. If only all Saint Domain magical beasts' carcasses were this small, I wouldn't need to be troubled over storing it anymore. Then, he ordered, Sakas. Look for the next Saint Domain magical beast. Yes, boss. The multi-armed behemoth resumed its journey once more. As per usual, Meng Lei also started to take stock of his rewards. He wouldn't have known just how scary his rewards were had he not done so. But the moment he did, he received a huge shock. My wealth points have increased by so much? Meng Lei was rather astonished. 58.6 laws of nature origin crystals. When converted to gold coins, that would amount to 586 billion gold coins. How much did I have before this again? 22.3 laws of nature origin crystals, so that makes it 223 billion gold coins. And now, it has become 58.6 laws of nature origin crystals. It has increased by a whole 36.3 laws of nature origin crystals. Oh my goodness! Why did it suddenly spike that much? Wait a minute. Let me calculate this. 1 golden corpse bug is worth 10 million gold coins, so 10 of them makes it 100 million gold coins. 36.3 laws of nature origin crystals is equivalent to 363 billion gold coins. In other words, that's 36,300 golden corpse bugs? 36,000 golden corpse bugs? They're worth that many gold coins? Oh my goodness! Hunting 9th grade magical beasts is more lucrative than hunting Saint Domain magical beasts. It was only after a long time that Meng Lei finally regained his composure. He understood that it wasn't so much as 9th grade magical beasts were more valuable than Saint Domain magical beasts. Rather, it was because the number of golden corpse bugs he'd just killed was simply too high. Every little bit counted when winning through sheer numbers. That was how he'd gotten the windfall of 363 billion gold coins. Little did I imagine that casually killing those golden corpse bugs would actually bring me this much benefits. Looks like hunting pack magical beasts is still the most cost-effective when it comes to money-making. Meng Lei ordered resolutely, Sakas, prioritize going to Saint Domain magical beasts with a clan. The bigger the clan, the better. And the stronger, the better. Understand? Yes, boss. Great. A satisfied Meng Lei nodded. Then, he looked at his massive wealth again. 58.6 laws of nature origin crystals was a huge sum of money. How should he spend them? His gaze swept across his stats interface. At once, Meng Lei had an idea. He instructed, System, raise my god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate. The system's icy-cold voice rang out. Ding! Raising the god-slaying rat bloodline by 1% requires 10 laws of nature origin crystals. May I know whether you'd like to raise it? Yes. Meng Lei looked absolutely unwilling to part with the money, but he still gave the order to do so anyway. He was already aware of the cost beforehand, so it didn't surprise him. Raising his bloodline assimilation rate by 1% required 100 billion gold coins, while raising his comprehension of laws of nature by 1% only required 10 billion gold coins. In other words, if he'd used the 100 billion gold coins to raise his comprehension of the laws of nature instead, he'd have been able to raise his comprehension of a certain type of laws of nature by 10%. 10%. That was already 1/10 of the total. From that, one could tell just how expensive raising the god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate was. Meng Lei found it worthwhile, however. The reason for that was because raising the god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate gave an all-round boost to his combat abilities. In particular, the boost it brought to his speed and defenses were even more fearsome. There was an absolute need for him to boost his speed and defenses in the perilous Lost Continent. especially when there was also a mysterious divine tree eyeing them in the shadows. Speed and high defenses couldn't get any more essential. Whoosh! His wealth instantly shrunk by 10 laws of nature origin crystals. At the same time, a blackish-green air current also abruptly emerged from the depths of his blood vessels and flowed rapidly into his limbs, body, veins, bones, and skin. It flowed into every inch of Meng Lei's body, rapidly modifying and strengthening it. Here it comes again. The intense agony and sharp pain that accompanied the strengthening process assailed Meng Lei's pain receptors, reaching straight into the bones and burning his insides. It was much, much more intense than when he'd assimilated the golden colossal dragon bloodline previously. Pain, pain, pain. Meng Lei let out a muffled grunt and clutched Sokka's fur. If he could, he really wished he could black out and get it over and done with. Unfortunately, when one's spiritual power was as powerful as his, how would they possibly pass out that easily? He couldn't. Therefore, the only thing he could do was to endure it. In that case, then that was what he would do. Upon sensing Meng Lei's abnormality, Sokka couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong, boss?" Meng Lei growled in a low voice, "Don't bother with me. Just focus on moving." Understood. For some reason, Meng Lei's low growl seemed to contain a boundless sense of majesty that gave Sokka shivers from the depths of its soul. It hurriedly buried its head into traveling and asked no more. The whole modification process lasted roughly half an hour before it ended. Although it was a painful process, the results were encouraging. The god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate had successfully risen to 2%. Apart from that, the biggest change was in his physical body constitution. It had doubled and reached an astonishing 24.1 billion points. Prior to this, it had been 12 billion points, but it had now reached 24.1 billion points. It had totally doubled. In other words, at the same time, his god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate was being raised by 1%. His physical body constitution had also increased by 12 billion points along the way. Had he redeemed the 12 billion physical body constitution points via credit, he'd have needed 120 billion gold coins to do that. What a worthwhile transaction. It couldn't get any more worthwhile. Not to mention that his speed and defenses had definitely received a great boost, too. It was absolutely no exaggeration to say that the practical benefits that Meng Lei received had far surpassed the value of 100 billion gold coins. To sum it up in one sentence, these 100 billion gold coins were simply too well spent. I've earned big. This is way more efficient than pure credit redemption. I don't need to spend on physical body constitution anymore in the future. If I want to spend on credit redemption, I can just put it all into the god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate. It's obviously way more cost-effective. It's just that the process is a little more painful. Meng Lei took a breath and steamed off the perspiration and bloodstains on himself. Then, he continued to browse his personal stats interface. Host: Meng Lei race. Human, Fire Dragon Bloodline, 52%. Fire Demon Bloodline, 47%. Golden God-slaying Ant Bloodline, 10%. God-slaying Rat Bloodline, 2%. Golden Colossal Dragon Bloodline, 50%. Wealth: 48.6 Laws of Nature Origin Crystals Physical Body Constitution. Saint Domain, 24, 124, 607, 410/100 billion. Spirit: Saint Domain, 1, 028, 314, 896/100 billion. Magic Power: Saint Domain, 1, 025, 888, 951/100 billion. Laws of Nature: Fire Elemental, 0.2%. Wind Elemental, 0.1%. Thunder Elemental, 0.1%. Metal Elemental, 0.2%. Light Elemental, 0.1%. Others. Some increase. Now that I've boosted my absolute combat strength, it's time for the game. Meng Lei switched into a comfortable position and laid down. Then he took a deep breath and slowly closed his eyes. System: I want to use the limitless pickup function. The system's icy cold voice rang out. Ding! 1 Laws of Nature Origin Crystal is required for the usage of this function. May I know if you'd like to use it? Yes. I'm loaded with cash. Whoosh. His wealth instantly shrunk by one law of nature origin crystal. Following that, a system notification also rang out a few seconds later. Ding! Assimilation successful. Host's wealth plus 1 million gold coins. Trattino basso? Meng Lei was dumbfounded. Host's wealth plus 1 million gold coins? What does that mean? I spent 10 billion gold coins just to pick up 1 million gold coins? What the actual F asterisk CK? What a huge loss. This is a terrible loss. 10 billion gold coins just to pick up something like this. I won't take this lying down. Again. Ding. 1 laws of nature origin crystal is required for the usage of this function. May I know if you'd like to use it? Yes. Whoosh. His wealth shrunk by 1 law of nature origin crystal again. The system's icy cold voice rang out. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You've obtained a branch from the Tree of Vitality. Branch from the Tree of Vitality. Rather flabbergasted, Meng Lei hastily took it out for inspection. An emerald green tree branch approximately 1 meter long appeared in his hand. A split second later, a surge of vitality emanated from it, revitalizing and refreshing Meng Lei and sweeping away his fatigue. Boss! Upon sensing the vitality surge, Sakas turned his head at once. Where did you get something like that, brat? It had caught Amos' attention, too. He emerged from the spatial ring and gazed in astonishment at the green tree branch in Meng Lei's hand. Do you recognize this thing, President? Asked Meng Lei. Duh! If I can't even recognize something like that, wouldn't I have lived these tens of thousands of years in vain? Amos rolled his eyes. Then, he picked up the tree branch and took a light sniff. As if an opium addict that had caught a whiff of opium, a look of revelry and infatuation appeared on his face at once. A branch from the Tree of Vitality. This is definitely a branch from the Tree of Vitality. This is good stuff. Contains an astonishing amount of vitality. Not only can it revive and heal, but it's also a treasure that can restore one's magic power. With this branch in hand, not only will meditation be several times, even dozens of times, more effective, but the restoration rate of the magic power in your body will also increase by a few times. This is good stuff. Definitely good stuff. Meng Lei asked eagerly, if I auction this off, how much can it sell for? This thing was completely a white elephant to him. If he could turn it into gold coins instead, then the 10 billion gold coins to pick it up wouldn't be spent in vain. What? You want to sell it? You wastrel! Amos broke into a rant at once. The Tree of Vitality is the Fairy Empire's holy tree. Outsiders can't even catch a glimpse of it, let alone obtain a branch from it. But if you were to auction this small little branch off, it'll fetch at least dozens of billions of gold coins, I guess? Perhaps even 100 billion. Up to 100 billion? Phew, that's not a loss then. Meng Lei heaved a sigh of relief and quickly kept the Tree of Vitality branch before contacting the system. You lousy system, look at what you've picked up for me? You rascal, aren't you scamming me too much? Dear host, the limitless pickup system is a random pickup function. The quality of the item picked up is completely random. Damn your randomness. Meng Lei said huffily. Can't you pick up something better for me? Even at the worst, you shouldn't make it too great of a loss. 10 billion gold coins per try is too hefty a price. Forget it. I won't do it anymore. It's too big a scam. But I really can't reconcile myself with this. I didn't get anything good twice in a row. I really can't reconcile myself with this. How about I give it another go? Yeah. I'll do it one last time. System, one more time. Ding. 1 laws of nature origin crystal is required for the usage of this function. May I know if you'd like to use it? Cut the crap. I'll use it one last time. Whoosh. His wealth shrunk by 1 law of nature origin crystal once again. Please stop scamming me. If I get another piece of trash, I'm gonna go berserk. Ding. Congratulations to the host. You've obtained the Hammer of Destruction. The whole swamp was barren, desolate, and quiet. There were no traces of life, and the whole place was silent. Then, all of a sudden, a huge shadow rushed from afar before ultimately coming to a stop in midair above the swamp. Thick, dense fur and powerful intertwining muscles covered its body. It was Sokka's the Behemoth. "Boss, this is the Scarlet Swamp Snake's territory," Sokka said as it turned to Meng Lei. The Scarlet Swamp Snake is an extremely powerful snake species that lives in a pack in the Lost Continent. Their numbers are fairly big. How strong are they? They vary in strength. Some are 6th grade to 7th grade, and some are 8th grade to 9th grade, while the Scarlet Swamp Snake Emperor itself is a Saint Domain magical beast. Generally speaking, the Scarlet Swamp Snakes are not any weaker than the Golden Corpse Bugs. Both are magical beast species that live in large packs. "Not bad." A satisfied Meng Lei waved him away. Then he ordered, "Go on and get the Scarlet Swamp Snake Emperor out here." "Yes, boss." Sokka's casually picked up a withered branch and threw it into the swamp, causing the waters to splash about everywhere and the mud to spatter. 2 minutes later, a 20 meters long water snake covered in reddish-brown spots weaved out of the swamp and slithered over to them in a crooked line. "That's the Scarlet Swamp Snake, boss." As it watched the Scarlet Swamp Snake intently, Sokka's explained, "This particular group of snakes is too greedy and has eaten all the living things inside the swamp. Therefore, Scarlet Swamp Snakes are constantly hungry. The moment there's even the slightest bit of motion, they'll be lured out of their den. Take a look over there." Meng Lei looked over on his cue to see Scarlet Swamp Snakes of varying sizes also popping out from other areas of the swamp. Additionally, their numbers were getting bigger and bigger. It was as though thousands upon thousands of snakes were spilling forth from their den. "They're a bunch of starving snakes, indeed." Meng Lei bent his fingers and made a stroking motion as if he were strumming a guitar. As he did so, wind blades also shot out one after another toward the Scarlet Swamp Snakes. Splurt, splurt, splurt. Amid constant jarring noises, the wind blades severed the Scarlet Swamp Snakes' heads one by one, and they died one after another. Blood spurted everywhere, and decapitated snakeheads were thrown out in all directions. In a mere instant, the Scarlet Swamp Snakes that had crawled out of their den had all been killed. Freshly spilled blood dyed the swamp red in dozens of spots, and the faint smell of blood slowly began to pervade the air. Was everything over? Of course not. As though they'd caught the smell of blood, more and more Scarlet Swamp Snakes emerged from the swamp, like mushrooms sprouting after rain. 10, 50, 100. In less than the amount of time it took to take a few breaths, the initially quiet swamp had become incredibly lively. Scarlet Swamp Snakes that had been hiding in unknown places made their grand appearances and filled up every corner of the swamp. At one glance, the whole place was a scarlet red. As far as the eye could see, big snakes were everywhere. Tisk tsk. There must be at least 8,000 of them, if not 10,000. Meng Lei marveled at the sight. Just as well. I can just take them all out. Then, absolute zero. Boom. A white, chilly air current burst forth and shrouded the whole area within 10,000 meters. Amid crisp snaps and cracks, everything in the surroundings was fixed in place during this instant. The Scarlet Swamp became a nation of frost, and all the Scarlet Swamp Snakes within 10,000 meters turned into vivid-looking ice sculptures. Ding! 1 Scarlet Swamp Snake killed. 13 million gold coins gained. Ding! 1 Scarlet Swamp Snake killed. 3.97 million gold coins gained. Meng Lei rose into the air and flew further into the swamp's depths, while Sokka's followed closely after him. Just like that, the pair slew everything in their path as they advanced. Snake carcasses were littered all about, and innumerable ice sculptures were created everywhere they passed through. When the pair reached the very center of the swamp, a deep pool appeared in front of them. As though an old well, the pool waters were a clean and clear dark green. Deep and bottomless, it was completely different from the unbearably polluted swampy waters around it. A powerful Saint Domain magical beast aura emanated from the pool, leaving no doubt to the fact that an enormous, savage beast was lurking within. Sokka's. Get him out here. Yes, sir. Sokka's grabbed a huge piece of wood and threw it right into the pool. At the same time, he also started to hurl abuse loudly. Albin, here's a F***king coffin for your ancestors. Hurry and get the hell out here. Splash! There was no way of telling whether it was the huge piece of wood that had alarmed the savage beast in the pool or Sokka's verbal abuse that had taken effect. Splash! Amid great splashes, an enormous snakehead jumped out of the pool and bit at Sokka's, who was in mid-air. At lightning-quick speed, its huge mouth opened wide, and a fishy, pungent stink rushed toward their faces. Humph! Sokka's was already prepared for this a long time ago. In the instant the snake dived toward it, its sharp claws closed together, and it grabbed viciously at it. Unexpectedly, in the instant that it was about to make contact with the snake, its head whipped to the side in an S-shape and bypassed Sokka's sharp claws to clamp its jaws down at its waist. Splash! The next moment, the snake's massive body followed closely and wound around Sokka's at high speed. It went 1 round, 2, 2.5. Roar! As a raging behemoth, how would Sokka's possibly allow the huge snake to get its way? With a roar into the sky, 6 2-meters-long barbed claws grabbed viciously at the snake's body. Slash! Slash! The claws created deep fissures in the snake's body with every grab Sokka's made as though metal hooks. Blood sprayed everywhere and dyed the snake, as well as the pool waters underneath them, red. Hiss! Pain came over the huge snake. It opened its cavernous jaws and bit at Sokka's neck. 2 sharp venomous fangs gleamed with a cold, greenish glow under the sunlight as they bit viciously at Sokka's. Meng Lei couldn't help but shake his head with a light laugh at the sight of that. Just how tough and solid was Sokka's body. First-class spells might not even be able to break its defenses, so how would 2 venomous fangs possibly be able to wound it? Splurt! However, something unbelievable happened the next moment. The 2 venomous fangs actually managed to pierce through Sokka's skin and sink viciously into its body with a splurt. Large amounts of venom were injected into its body and began to spread rapidly. Sokka's stiffened up, and the movements of its sharp, barbed claws that were brandishing about fervently also gradually began to slow down. Evidently, it had been poisoned. What the F***ck? Meng Lei, who was awfully shocked, hastily got ready to go forward to render aid. Not only was Sokka's his trusted subordinate and favored aide, but he was also loyal and devoted. He couldn't just watch it die from the snake's venom. Whoosh! Unexpectedly, a sudden turn of events occurred at this point. A shrill was abruptly rang out, and a green arrow shot toward them at an unbelievable speed. In an instant, it had pierced through the snake's point of weakness. At once, the snake's eyes rolled up, and its massive body immediately froze up. From the look of it, it wasn't going to survive. At the same time, the green arrow continued its momentum and pierced through the snake's head to shoot toward Sokka's throat. The green arrows might hadn't diminished by much. Even Meng Lei couldn't be sure whether or not it would pierce through Sokka's throat. He couldn't take chances with it. Damn! Meng Lei hastily grabbed at the arrow. After he had raised the god-slaying rat bloodline assimilation rate to 2%, his speed had improved even further. In an instant, he had come right up to Sokka's. Unfortunately, it was ultimately still a step too late. Splurt! The green arrow's ability to penetrate had reached terrifying levels. It easily broke through Sokka's superbly strong defenses and shot right into its throat. Ugh! Blood sprayed into the air. Sokka's let out a mournful cry as blood began to spurt madly from its throat, instantly dyeing the thick fur at its chest red. Bastard! Meng Lei almost went berserk. However, he managed to barely hang on to his last vestige of rationality and stop himself from killing the person that had launched the sneak attack. Instead, he cast a wood elemental first-class spell, Blessings of Life. Buzz! The wood elements within 10,000 meters of where he was converged fervently to form a 100 meters wide funnel that covered Sokka's within. Wood elements containing abundant vitality began to rapidly heal the wound at Sokka's throat. Under Blessings of Life's healing powers, the wound at Sokka's throat began to visibly heal. The bleeding gradually stopped in just a few moments, and the wound had become close to closing. Eat this! Meng Lei also brought out a wood elemental Saint Domain magical beast's vitality core and stuffed it into Sokka's mouth to continue healing its wound. Thank you. Boss! The successive blows had made Sokka's, a strong and muscular behemoth, rather weak, and its voice was no longer as fierce and ferocious as it had previously been. All I can do is heal your physical wound. I can't remove the snake venom in you. Meng Lei had a grave look on his face as he asked, "Are you able to tough it out?" "Don't worry, boss." Sokka's grinned a little and replied weakly, "It's nothing but just the scarlet swamp snake emperor's venom. Can't kill me. We behemoths are immune to most snakes' venom. If you let me take a short break, I'll be alive and kicking in a while." "Good to hear that." Meng Lei heaved a sigh of relief. His tightly knitted brows also smoothened out. As he patted Sokka's shoulder, he said comfortingly, "Have a good rest. Leave the rest to me." "Yes, boss." Meng Lei turned round, the look in his eyes already replaced by a chilling harshness. As he gazed at the direction from which the green arrow had shot out 0F, murderous intent suffused his eyes as he said, "You sneaky bastard. Get the hell out here." Boom! The order, once given, was strictly enforced. As a furious roar rang out, endless black flames suddenly rained down from the sky and shrouded the forest in the other direction. Boom, boom, boom. As though the flames of Amaterasu won, the black flames set everything in their path on fire and turned them into blazing flames that sprayed everywhere. In the twinkling of an eye, the forest had turned into a sea of black fire. Whoosh! A green feminine figure flew out of the sea of fire. The tips of her toes tapped lightly in the air, and she landed gracefully on the ground like a green butterfly. Her movements were light and nimble like an otherworldly celestial maiden's. Pointed ears, a tall, slender figure, a beautiful, exquisite face, soft, tender skin, and a pair of gentle, attractive, jet-black eyes that looked as though they could speak. Added to those her emerald green armor that covered only the essentials and left everything else exposed. She was innocent-looking yet sensual at the same time and brimmed with endless allure. When faced with such an enchanting woman, any man would be moved. Meng Lei was also a little stunned by her beauty, but what he felt, even more, was fury, fierce, blazing fury. "Were you the one that ambushed my prey and attacked my mount? How bold of you! All the magical beasts on this continent are my prey. Those two Saint Domain magical beasts are naturally no exception." The beautiful woman's lips moved as she replied. Her voice was clear and melodious, as if a trickling stream that moistened the bottom of one's heart. She said, "You can leave now. They are mine." Meng Lei broke into laughter at her words. His sinister laughter resounded in the air above the swamp. "And if I don't?" One, the sun goddess in Japanese myths. One had cold eyes and emanated murderous intent, while the other sported an aloof expression and a haughty demeanor. "Leave? What if I don't?" Meng Lei licked his lips, the corners of his lips curling upward. "I don't have time to waste on you. If you're not too foolish, you should know what you should be doing." Miriam, the immortal fairy, replied in a clear and melodious voice. "Otherwise, I can only use the arrow in my hand to give you a hand." Yet another braggart that thinks too highly of themselves. Meng Lei shook his head lightly. "I've seen too many people like you, and there's usually only one outcome for all of you." Whoosh! With a soft whiz, Meng Lei quietly vanished from where he was. His movements were so fast that he left behind a series of afterimages. Everywhere he passed by, he left behind a trail of afterimages. In an instant, Meng Lei was already right in front of Miriam. Then his foot went flying out. His kick was honestly one that was as immovable as a mountain when still and like a clap of shocking thunder when in action. Most people couldn't react in time at all, and this category of people naturally included the powerful Prince Barbarossa as well. However, what surprised Meng Lei was that Miriam the Immortal Fairy had actually reacted in time. A hint of anger appeared on her exquisite features. She was thoroughly enraged. "How dare you kick me, you bastard!" Without a second word, she raised her arm and fired an arrow. Her actions as she held her bow up and notched an arrow were as smooth as flowing water, and she was actually slightly faster than even the current Meng Lei. Whoosh! A green arrow instantly shot toward Meng Lei. As they were too near each other, Meng Lei couldn't even duck in time, and the green arrow shot straight toward his heart. Thud! This time, something that shocked Myriad happened. The green arrow collided against Meng Lei's chest, only to let out a dull thud before turning into a bunch of green dots and dissipating into the air. Other than that, it actually didn't hurt Meng Lei at all. It didn't even pierce through his skin. Oh my dragon god! Myriad was terribly stunned. She was thoroughly astounded by what had just happened. One must know that she was a Saint Domain archer. The power in her arrows could pierce through the vast majority of magical beasts. Yet it hadn't made a scratch on him. Just how powerful were Meng Lei's defenses? Practically a nightmare. Was he really human? Boom! A moment or two was enough to determine the outcome of a battle between experts. In the split second where Myriad was distracted, Meng Lei's foot had already reached. His foot struck her exquisite face viciously. Myriad let out a shrill cry and flew outward with a scream. Do you think it's over? You're dead wrong. Meng Lei had no intentions to stop. He used both his fists and his legs, launching a series of frenzied attacks and raining blows upon her in succession. It was kick after kick and punch after punch. Bam, bam, bam. Smack, smack, smack. Boom, boom, boom. As she had already lost the initiative, and coupled with Meng Lei's incredibly berserk attacks, Myriad wasn't able to launch any decent attacks anymore. Instead, she turned into a punching bag that could only passively take attacks. The fury in Meng Lei caused him to attack without holding back at all, much less hold any tender feelings toward the fairer sex. She wasn't his wife anyway, so why should he feel any sort of tenderness toward her? Ah! 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 After a few minutes of pummeling, the fury in Meng Lei was finally appeased. Myriad looked as if she had been struck by the legendary beyond recognition kick, and her face was totally swollen. Even the sight of her alone was already nauseating enough to most people, let alone feel the urge to kiss her. Has my beyond recognition kick reached a great mastery level? At the sight of Miriam's terrible state, Meng Lei nodded in satisfaction. The fury in him had finally been vented. This is the outcome of launching sneak attacks from the shadows. Why you? Myriad was both alarmed and furious. How she wished she could eat Meng Lei's flesh, drink his blood, slash him 1,000 times, and dismember him into 1,000,000 pieces. She, the great immortal fairy, one of Dragon God Academy's 4 great monsters, the ice goddess that countless people idolized. Since when had she ever taken such a vicious beating? This was practically a great insult to her. And yet, what's there to you about? Cut the crap. If you don't hand over your spatial ring, I'll beat you up again. Meng Lei snorted and went on. A glance at how little you're wearing is enough for me to know that you're no decent person. Someone like you should just hurry up and go to Ihong Brothel 1. This isn't a place where you should be. Ugh! Myriad was so furious that she threw up blood. Then, she fell right onto the ground. Playing dead. Meng Lei raised an eyebrow. With a casual point of his finger, the deep pool below them instantly froze, and Myriad landed on the ice. Afraid that she was playing tricks, Meng Lei froze her arms and her legs before he approached her with peace of mind. Then he took off all her spatial rings, and then he escaped at once. Be thankful that I showed mercy. *TCH. If the exchange competition hadn't prohibited contestants from taking another contestant's life, your head wouldn't be on your neck right now. I seriously doubt whether or not you're really a man. Such a beautiful woman, and such an exquisite-looking face, pure and innocent yet sensual. A beauty so gorgeous that she can fall kingdoms and cities and captivate even the birds and the beasts. And yet you, not only are you unmoved, but you even beat her up into such a horrible state. Is it because you didn't develop properly and haven't developed your carnal desires? Or are you just not a man at all? After leaving the Scarlet Swamp Snake Swamp, Meng Lei resumed his Saint Domain magical beast-searching journey. Along the way, Amos grumbled and nagged, constantly criticizing Meng Lei's terrible conduct. Terrible conduct? Yes, terrible conduct, indeed. What Meng Lei had done to Myriad were wicked deeds that enraged both gods and mortals alike. How could he beat a beauty into that awful state? Was it something that a human should do? Meng Lei didn't feel like entertaining that amorous old man, so he changed the topic and asked, "Sakas, how's the snake venom in your body?" "I've already more or less recovered, boss." "Alright, that's great. Something is puzzling me, though. Why were the Scarlet Swamp Snake Emperor's venomous fangs able to pierce through your skin so easily when your defenses are so high?" "You don't understand, boss. The Scarlet Swamp Snake Emperor's venomous fangs are comparable to a half-divine weapon. Incredibly sharp and virtually indestructible. They can pierce through almost all Saint Domain magical beasts' armor and defenses." In the period of time that followed, Meng Lei continued to hunt magical beasts. As time moved forward day by day, his wealth also increased rapidly. Apart from resting, eating, and occasionally redeeming credit, all Meng Lei did the rest of the time was hunting. Before he knew it, half a month had gone by. On this day, Meng Lei arrived at the seaside. The endless oceans were shrouded in boundless fog as usual. Apart from the sound of surging torrential waves, one couldn't see any further. Meng Lei went over to an ocean bay. The waters at the crescent-shaped bay were calm and peaceful and a clear azure blue, much like a sapphire. A short distance from the bay was an expanse of forests. Sandwiched between the dense forests and the bay was a soft sandy shore with fine sand and warm, mild sunlight. Large crabs occupied the shore, bubbling at their mouths as they sunbathed. Relaxed and comfortable, they were as carefree as can be. "Boss, this is the Golden Ocean Bay, the golden brown crab's territory." Sakas pointed at the calm and peaceful shore and said, "Domineering and savage by nature, most of the golden brown crabs are very strong. They are basically all 8th and 9th grade magical beasts. At last, a group of magical beasts that haven't been slaughtered yet. What a hard life I lead." Meng Lei heaved a small sigh. In just a short half a month, almost all the magical beasts on the Lost Continent have been wiped out. The Lost Continent occupied a vast territory, and its surface area reached as big as over 10 million square kilometers, and in it lived innumerable magical beasts. During the first few days of reaching the Lost Continent, Meng Lei had a lot of fun. His average daily profits had exceeded 100 billion gold coins. However, as time passed, there were fewer and fewer magical beasts. The target magical beasts had either all been slaughtered by others or were currently in the midst of being hunted. Hence his profits had started to plummet. As a result, they'd only found this undiscovered paradise and a group of yet-to-be-slaughtered magical beasts after traveling about for an entire day. Not only did his daily profits not reach even 10 billion gold coins, but he was spending the vast majority of time moving about. To sum it up, the number of magical beasts had really decreased. To be honest, the calculations made sense, too. With an area of 10 million square kilometers and 7,000 to 8,000 contestants, each contestant didn't even have an area of 1,500 square kilometers to themselves on average. How could the place possibly be able to endure a 2-week-long hunt? One must understand that hardly even a single magical beast could be found within several hundred kilometers of the Saint Domain magical beasts territories. These large regions were practically empty. Those that weren't Saint Domain magical beasts couldn't withstand the contestants' massacres either. After the passage of half a month, it was entirely understandable how almost all the magical beasts had been cleanly slaughtered. Without magical beasts to hunt, a large-scale massacre among the contestants is going to take place in the upcoming half a month's time. Meng Lei knew that very well. In the Lost Continent elimination round, only the top 100 contestants with the most number of points would be selected, while all the other 7,748 contestants would be eliminated. With only 1 in 78 advancing to the next round, the ratio was simply too low. One could totally imagine just what was going to happen in the upcoming half a month's time. What does that have to do with me, though? Without magical beasts to hunt, Meng Lei's enthusiasm in moving about had dropped significantly. Rather than pursuing the other contestants all about the continent, he might as well wait for them to come to him instead. The moment the thought occurred to him, Meng Lei's gaze couldn't help but land on the Golden Ocean Bay. With clean and clear waters, beautiful scenery, white and clean sand, and gentle and mild sun, It was both suitable for swimming, as well as for sunbathing. It was totally a sanctuary for a beach vacation. Looks like even the heavens want me to wait idly for opportunities. All right, I'll rest here for a few days. Meng Lei smacked his lips. Then, as several wind blades shot out, the hundreds of golden brown crabs on the shore were wiped out at once, including even the golden brown crab emperor. Let's modify things a little. The seawater churned and splashed against the shore, washing away the blood on it. Then, vines extended and weaved into a beach chair and a beach umbrella. Ha! Iarikome. With a leap, Meng Lei jumped into the clean and clear waters and began to swim leisurely. During the last half a month, he had either been hunting magical beasts or busy traveling about. Going about and camping outdoors had worn him out. Therefore, he would relax properly this time. After a round of swimming, Meng Lei returned to the shore in satisfaction. He laid down on the lush, green beach chair and brought out wine and fruits. Then, he began to eat them in delight. Sakas, it's time for fishing. Whether or not we can bait the fishes will depend on you. What do you mean by that, boss? Sakas, who was soaking in the sea and swimming about, looked stupefied. I'm bathing, you know. Can it wait? In other words, you're supposed to act as the bait. Never mind. Just let out your aura. I'm telling you to let out your aura, not your gas. A common name for brothels in Chinese stories.